Hey guys, welcome to my channel. For those of you that are new, thanks so much for stopping by. Today we're going to be working with Flower Beauty. So this is a brand that I've tried a few things of and I've really enjoyed. So I wanted to delve a little bit deeper, try out a few more products, and I needed to get a new concealer anyway. I really love the Flower Beauty Light Illusion Concealer, and I've had a really hard time finding it in any stores. I'm not sure if they're leaving stores and they're only going to be a brand online. So, needing to get that concealer is sort of what made me delve a little bit more into what the brand has to offer online. And we are going to have almost enough to do a complete full face of Flower Beauty. So this should be fun. Let's go ahead and jump right in. So we're going to start off with one of the products that I know I already enjoy, and that is the Flower Beauty Light Illusion Foundation. So this says it's luminous makeup with a nude skin feel. I will say that this is probably, as far as like a medium coverage foundation, this is probably one of my favorites because it does have a little bit of luminosity to it and it just has that healthy glow. So we're going to go ahead and pop this on. I'm going to choose to use a beauty sponge today. This is the Luxie one. This is actually, I believe, the one that's meant for like baking, but your girl don't bake, so we will not be using this for baking anytime soon. So I'm just going to try using this as my foundation sponge, and I'm just going to put a couple pumps on here. The reason I'm using this is I do want to have this a bit more sheer. I think I've only used this with a brush in the past. I actually find that while I love applying my concealer with a sponge, I almost always reach for a brush to apply my foundation. And I think a big part of that is because I, on a day-to-day, really pretty much just wear a very light coverage skin product anyway, so I don't necessarily need to sheer it out even more. That's just one thing that I've found, but having this beauty sponge a little bit damp will kind of give us a little bit more of a sheer effect. So I'm just using the flat side of the sponge to spread the makeup everywhere I need it, and then I'm going to take this other side and just pounce it in. So this has a luminous finish, but it's not super dewy. So it has like a glowy feel to it, but it's not one of those ones that's going to feel really oily by the end of the day. So if you guys can see that little bit of luminosity that it gives to the skin, I really do like this foundation. It could certainly be medium buildable, but it's never going to be like super fierce, like full coverage, which is not something that I prefer, but I do really like the finish of this. So now we're going to go ahead and go through with our concealer. And by the way, I will go ahead and link the prices of all of the products that I'm using. I know that Ulta still carries some Flower Beauty. They don't have a great selection, but I did find that some things were less expensive on Ulta and some things were less expensive on the Flower Beauty website. So that is one thing to look out for, is to see which prices are better where. But because I was ordering such a big amount of things and some that weren't on the Ulta website, I just went ahead and ordered from Flower. All right, so when I ordered, I have been using this concealer for a long time and I thought I had the shade light medium. So when I ordered another light medium and then I ordered medium honey. However, then I found out that I actually have been using light and did not get another one of those. So the nice thing is this light medium shade is probably going to be perfect for like that spring, summer, and then fall and winter I'll be able to use the light. So this foundation, by the way, that I put on is natural beige. I do feel like it's like a half a shade lighter than what I am right now perhaps, but I think this will work out. I'll go through with the light medium concealer, and then if I need to dab a little bit of light in certain areas, that's what we'll do. So I have to say this is probably my favorite drugstore concealer of all time. It's still in my probably top 2 or 3 concealers in general. It has a decent medium coverage. It is luminous. I don't find this concealer to crease really heavily. The one downside I will say is that I think it dries really fast. So if you aren't quick with applying your concealer and blending it out, I would recommend doing like one eye and then going through and doing the other eye as far as like applying the product. And then like if you're going to do your nose or anything like that. So certain days, that's what I'll do. Like I just applied my eyes first, and then to take some over my nose, I'll do that next so that it doesn't like start drying in place where I just placed that product, if that makes any sense. I honestly think that you could wear this for 4 or 5 hours without setting it and not really have many creasing issues because it isn't like a super slidey product. So I do really like it. By the way, I'm using the ColourPop original like Pretty Fresh sponge. I did see that they just launched that kit of sponges. I kind of want to pick that up. Like I've never used a silicone sponge or a flocked sponge, and I think you got like 5 or 6 sponges for 20 bucks. So I thought that that would be a good thing to try. And like I said, I am missing a couple products to be able to use from this brand. And since this is a drugstore priced brand, I'm going to go ahead and supplement with drugstore priced products just to kind of keep this all within like the same budget. But I really do like that concealer. If you guys can see, it just gives you enough coverage to feel like put together. It's not like super, super high coverage, but I enjoy this for my everyday concealer. So for my setting powder today, I'm gonna go ahead and go through with the RCMA No Color Powder. This is such an incredible powder in general, but for the price, you just can't beat it. I get mine on Beautylish, and well, I should say I got mine on Beautylish. Like this dang canister is lasting me forever. That should be my goal for the year, is to try to get through that thing, but I honestly think that I would have to use it every day. I only have like the tiniest bit gone so far. So, but this is really nice. It doesn't add any coverage. It just helps set down areas that you need to set. Right, so now we're gonna get into some of the fun new things that I got. So I wanted to get a little bit of face items from the brand, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to do like individuals. I've heard really good things about like the Flower individual blushes, but I saw this little face palette here. This is the Beauty Flash Full Face Palette. I'm not sure if this comes in a couple shades. I will look again online to see, but I'll open this guy so you can see. So we have 3 eyeshadows, 2 blushes, a bronzer, and a highlighter. Pretty much everything that I got, I have went ahead and used 3 or 4 times because I wanted to be able to give you guys a true review of how I feel about it. Now, I will say I've also used these blushes as eyeshadows. I do also think that this highlighter shade could be a good all-over luminizing powder. It's not like bam highlight, and then this eyeshadow could probably be used as a more highlighty highlight, if that makes any sense. So the one thing that I will say is this bronzer shade, if you guys can even see that, this bronzer shade, sorry, I've been looking in my little monitor here to make sure I'm pointing at the right product, but this bronzer shade almost has a rosy brown to it. So when I wore it on my skin, I felt like it was a bit warm, but not in the fashion that would be like orangey, if you guys can see that there. It's almost just like a little rosy. So I would not use this product to contour with because it is so warm. It would still be a fine like bronzer to use like on the cheek area because it'll almost be like bronzer blush. But I find that, you know, for like a traditional bronzer effect, it's just a little, the tone is off for me. So what I did also get though is the Heatwave Bronzing Essence Drops. So these are like liquid drops, and it says you can add it into your foundation or like a primer, or you can even put it on all on its own for just like a glow if you're going to be doing like no makeup that day. So I put these into my foundation the other day. I just had a tinted moisturizer that I was wearing, and I find that they're pretty darn pigmented. So I actually, when I got to work, I felt like I was a little more tan in the face than I needed to be. So I wanted to try using these as a liquid bronzer. So fingers crossed, we're gonna give it a go. All right, so just to make sure that I have everything like out of the way for this bronzing process, I wanted to put my headband in. So I'm just gonna put a few drops on my hand and I'll show you what that looks like. So here are those bronzing drops, and they are, I mean, it's pigmented, I think. So I'm hoping that this will work as a bronzer. I have to go to dinner tonight, so I'm hoping that I'm not like making a huge mistake. And now I'm going through with the other Luxie sponge that I got. Yeah, I like that. It's definitely sheer, and I mean, it would be probably a little less sheer if I applied it with a brush, but I wasn't sure how much this was going to show up. So I figured start slow. Pretty. I like that I like the little glow that it has to it. It doesn't have any glitter to it at all. It just has that little bit of luminosity. I do feel like though putting it over my concealer that was on that breakout like lifted the concealer right there. So probably just because it's so wet, it's gonna like displace some of that. So you want to be careful then to not, like, if you're gonna use a brush, I would use a stippling brush and just be very gentle about working that under the skin, because the more buffing motion you do, you're gonna lift up some of the product underneath. So I'm gonna try to just pop a little bit of concealer back over that area. I do think that you could certainly put this in with a foundation, but I did probably about equal parts, and I think that that was just too much in my foundation. So I do think that maybe this would be good to like mix in with your moisturizer on days that you want to just have a little bronzy glow, but you're not really going to be wearing anything coverage wise. So I'm looking forward to playing with this one a little bit more. I definitely like using it as a liquid bronzer. All right, so I would wait until you know for sure that those bronzing drops are dried on your face to go through with the blush, but I'm going to go through with this top shade. So you've got one blush that is a little bit more like pinky mauve, and one blush that is more of like a peachy kind of coral color. I don't know if you guys will be able to see those on here, but I have worn both of them and they're both really pretty. But for me, with the eye look that I kind of have planned, I want to go through and use a cooler tone. I do have another product that we're going to be using on the eyes as well that I'm really excited about. So I'm going to use the cooler blush. Now the only problem is obviously these are like small pans, so you have to use a smaller brush to be able to get in here. So for me, I'm using this like Sephora Pro Mini that I got for being rouge, I think it was, because otherwise you're gonna mix and like maybe you'll pick up some of the bronzer, maybe you'll pick up, you know, some of the highlight. So a little bit of a smaller brush is gonna be the way to go with that. These blushes are nice. They're kind of average, I guess I would say. It's certainly not bad at all. I don't know if this palette formula is different than the other blushes, but I wouldn't run out and buy another blush if it is this formula. Not because it's bad, it's just not anything like overwhelmingly wowing me. I like something with a little bit of a glow, and this is more of like a matte blush. But I wanted to get this palette because I thought, oh, if you're traveling, you're just gonna be gone overnight, you want, you know, one thing that you can throw in your bag that has a lot of different options in it, it would be a good way to go. So this will definitely be something that I would feel comfortable traveling with. Now, speaking of blushes, I do have the Flower Beauty blush bombs, and these are probably my favorite, for sure my favorite drugstore cream blush, but probably my favorite cream blush in general. I love these. I think that they're so beautiful on the skin. I didn't want to use them today because I've talked about them before and I've even used them in some videos before, but they are really great. I am going to use this in a little bit. I'm going to try it on my lips, so we will see how that goes. But I wanted to use the palette just so that I could really tell you guys, you know, how this works. But I do like the colors. They're both really pretty. In the pan, it looks like they're gonna be, especially this bottom one, it looks like it would be a little glowy, but I don't see a lot of that on the skin. The bronzer, however, would make a really pretty, like slightly glowy blush. So these are all, you know, like a satin finish, other than that one eyeshadow that is a little bit more shimmery. So definitely you can play around, use these in lots of different ways, but as far as the blush goes, it's pretty. It's just not something that I would, you know, go towards every day. I'm not gonna pull this palette out of my blush collection to just use the blush. So whatever that is worth to you guys. All right, now I'm gonna go through and use the highlighter. So again, like I said, this is definitely a perfect shade if you are someone who doesn't want your highlighter to really look like makeup. If you are wanting just that natural glow, like if you guys can see that. So it's not gonna be like Bam from Space Glow, which is totally fine. Here's the finished skin. I'm gonna go ahead and set my face and do my eyebrows, and then I'll be back. I'm really excited to finish up this eye look with you guys because I have a product that I think everybody could use in their collection. It's really awesome. Okay, so I just set my face, did my brows. By the way, as far as brows go, I did try using this powder one day in my brows and it did work pretty well. It is a bit warmer of a brown, so if you want a really cool tone brow, that's not what I would go with. It was a little bit warmer than what I have. I personally like that, especially because my microblading has faded out really cool toned, and so I like something that's a little bit warmer to like match it. But I think that if you have very cool toned hair, it would look a little too warm in your brows. I just didn't want to use that today because I want something that's a little bit more long lasting since we are going out to dinner tonight, so I didn't choose to use that. But I am so excited to talk to you guys about what we're going to be using next. We're going to use the Jungle Lights palette from Flower. So this is 6 beautiful like foiled eyeshadows These pans are super huge. I think, you know, for the price of this palette, it's definitely worth it. I have used 1, 2, 3 of the shades in here. I have used this like coppery shade, I've used the green shade, and then the like gold vanilla shade. So I'm gonna swatch these for you guys. They are super incredible. I've definitely learned a little bit about how to use these as we go, which I'll get into, but I'm gonna give you guys a little swatch so you can see. All right, so if you guys can see here how pretty and reflective, like if I turn that towards the light, look how beautiful it is. These feel super buttery and they are very shiny. They do feel like they might have quite a bit of an oil to them. So one thing that I would recommend is if you have oily lids, you are going to want to put down a primer first, like a really good eye primer, so that these last a little bit longer. I did find, I don't have oily lids, but on one of my really long days, by the end of the day, they had worn away just a little bit. Now I've used these both dry and wet. I like them both ways. Obviously, if you use them dry, they're going to be a little less foiled. I think for today, just because I want to be like super bam foily, I'm going to go ahead and go through and use Fix Plus for that portion. All right, guys, so I was waiting for a weird sound in the pipes to stop being so loud. So I just went through and put this medium warm shade in my transition. I went through and did that first, just so that I would be able to buff that out without kicking off a bunch of the shimmer. I find that, you know, if you do too much blending and buffing, sometimes your shimmer shade just kind of like knocks off. So just wanted to get that laid down for a good base to go over. I really do like this shade. I think that it has just enough warmth to it to be flattering on just about everybody. So now we're gonna go through and start with this shade here, and it's called Wild. I do like that they have the names on the back of the palette. So we're gonna go through with Wild. Of course, you know, I like applying all of my shimmers with a flat shader brush. This is one from Luxie. I'm gonna go through and just pop some of this on the brush and then spritz it with Fix Plus. Now, of course, you could also use your finger if you want to. I don't like using my finger with makeup, so I'm not going to do that, but it is an option you'd have. I will say the texture of these shadows is a little thicker and chunky. And I don't want to say that like it's like really bad, but you'll get that a lot with more emollient, you know, shimmer shades, is you're going to get that like thicker feel. And so I like to really make sure that I press that product into the lid first before I start swiping, just so that some of those chunks, you know, don't come like flying off. You could also, of course, go ahead and do your eyes first and then move into your face makeup in case you need to, you know, remove any fallout, but that's just the way that I like to go about it. Now I'm going to place the Jaguar shade, which is the deeper purple, just out in the very corner. I will also probably go through and smoke out the lower lash line with it, but I just wanted a little bit of depth in that outer corner to work with. Now I will say, if you don't press down, those little flecks of product come off pretty well just with the kick of a fluffier brush. Okay, now I'm going to take a small blender brush and go into that deep brown that's in the palette, the one that I was telling you guys I used on my eyebrows, and I'm just going to put that in the crease lightly. All right, so I worked that dark brown up into the crease a little bit higher, just because I know I'm going to be smoking out that lower lash line with the purple. We're going to be very careful about this. Now I'm using a smudger brush, the E21 from Sigma, because this is going to have a shape that's going to allow me to move the product around a little bit. I think that's enough. We're going out to dinner. There's like this little bar that has good crab legs, but it's like a bar nonetheless. So I don't need to be super glam for our evening. So I think that that is really pretty. I love the shimmer that these shades have. I'm going to try to tap just a little bit more of that first shade on the lid. Yeah, I think that looks so nice. It's like smoky and shimmery and really pretty. For the price, like these shadows are really awesome. So I'm gonna finish up the eye and then we will continue on and do our lips. Okay, so I zoomed you guys in and I thought we could finish up as I put on mascara and sort of talk a little bit about the palette. Now, I have not bought a mascara from Flower for pretty much one reason. I am vowing to not buy any new mascara this year. The only exception is if I run out of my Telescopic Carbon Black, because you guys know that one is my favorite, but I have so many mascaras in my collection, whether it's from, you know, purchasing ones that I wanted to try or getting little freebies, you know, in the, oh, buy this and get this sample. I have so many to go through. So until I really narrow down that stash, I am not going to buy any more mascara. So I'm sorry that I didn't do that. I am actually going to be doing a video, filming it right after this, on 5 products. I think it's going to be 5, but 5 products I'm not going to buy this year. So if you'd like to see that one, I think it'll actually probably go up before this video, so I will link it up in the, actually, I think it's like over on this side when I link, but I'll link it up on this side so you guys can check that out. But I'm not just going to keep buying to buy when I have things in my collection that, especially mascara, I know some of those are dried out and they've been sitting there. So what I'm going to do for my lashes today is 1 coat of L'Oreal Telescopic and then 1 coat of the Voluminous Lash Paradise. I almost always use L'Oreal Telescopic as almost like a priming coat, just because it really helps like find every lash. It makes them really nice and long. I did go ahead and already curl my lashes, but this is definitely like a go-to for me. So I'm just gonna pop 1 quick coat of this on and then the other. How do you guys feel? Do you have things in your collection that you're like, okay, I have so many of these, I probably don't need to buy anymore? I challenge you to at least pick 1 thing that you're not going to purchase until you run through some of what you have. So not only does it make you go through the products that you need to go through, but it actually will help you rediscover some of the things that you have that you didn't remember that you have. So I'm going to challenge you guys. Let me know in the comments if you're going to pick an item this year to, you know, have a no buy on. All right, so here are the finished eyes. By the way, I did also go through, I was thinking about using that light shade in the eyeshadow palette, but it was a little bit too warm, so I actually used the highlighter shade from the palette as a little kind of like soft inner corner highlight. It's like just barely there, but it gives a nice little glow. So I really like this. Of course, you could throw on some false lashes. This would give this a really beautiful, dramatic look. It's not going to be needed for tonight. So now we're going to go through with the lips. Like I said, I want to try using this as a lipstick. I don't know how it's going to go, but I thought that maybe it might make a good little lip stain. I'm going to start off with a Rimmel lip pencil just because obviously I want to be able to get some defined lips, and with a cream like that, I don't know if that'll happen. So I'm going to go through with the Rimmel Spice just to give my lips some definition before we pop a little bit of that blush balm on. All right, so I went ahead and filled in my lips with that shade. So I'm going to take just a bit of that blush balm so you guys can see this color here. It's really like nice bright melon shade. Now, since I haven't ever done this before, I don't know how it'll last. What I'll do is I will let you guys know in the description box how this ended up lasting, but I like the look of it. So I have a feeling because this cream blush is a little bit creamy, it's gonna end up being almost like a creamy matte. So, which is about as matte as I ever wanna go. Like the way my lips look right now, that's as matte as I would pretty much everywhere. So, all right guys, I have to say I am feeling very happy. I mean, obviously a couple of these things I'd already tried, but I love the way that this look came together. Out of everything, I mean, you guys know the concealer is like one of my all-time favorites. If you haven't tried it, I highly recommend it. Really, the only con to me is that it dries fairly quickly. So if you do try out the Light Illusion concealer, all I recommend is that maybe you start and apply in one area at a time before you go and blend out, just to see how you feel, but it's definitely a favorite of mine. I do also think I'm gonna get some good use out of this Beauty Flash palette. I wish that the bronzer was a little bit more of a true bronze shade, And again, I'm going to look and see if they had a couple shades in this palette, because this really is going to be ideal for light to medium skin. Maybe they have a medium to deep palette as well, but everything came together. I mean, even now after the blush has sat for a little bit and, you know, I went through with highlighter and setting powder, I really like the look of it. It's very soft. I will definitely, like I said, have this as a travel palette. And that highlighter is so pretty. Like, I think that a soft highlighter just makes you look so fresh, and I don't feel like it looks like, whoa, makeup. It just looks really nice and light. So glad I got this. It'll definitely be coming along in my travels. But obviously the star of the show is this Jungle Lights palette. I am having so much fun playing with this. A couple recommendations, like I said, if you have oily lids, make sure you use an eye primer and not a concealer. You want something that is specifically meant to really lock that shadow in place. Something like a concealer is going to be a little bit more emollient, and it's going to, you know, maybe let those shadows slide around. Also, just making sure that you are careful when you're patting those shades on. I did end up, when I was doing this other eye, filming a little close-up of my brush and how like flaky that shadow looks on it. So I probably popped that earlier in the video when I was talking about it, but just so you guys can see, you really have to make sure to take care to press that onto the lid before you do any like blending or swiping. But other than that, this is going to be so much fun to play with. These bronzing drops that I got, I really like them. I think, you know, the final look looks really nice. I'm going to play with them a little bit more. I don't know that it's going to be something that's a major in my collection, but I do think it will actually really be nice if I have lighter foundations that I want to transfer into my spring and summer. So this has definitely been a hit for me as far as a little shopping. So I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me while we tried Flower Beauty today. If there's another brand that you'd like me to give a go, leave it in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. Thanks so much, guys. I'll see you really soon.